Hello, it's Todd Shank from Premier FPL with the Gameweek 31 tips today. I decided to put this out early in the week just to try to kind of get it out there, give you guys something to prep for the weekend. I know that some definitely things could happen, especially with the Liverpool Champions League match tomorrow. You never know what might happen, end up with some injuries in there. Same thing. With that, just never know when something's going to come up midweek. But nevertheless, I did want to put this out there and go over some of my thoughts on mainly some of the teams to target, and then I'll also discuss a couple players that I would highlight for the week, some captain's picks, and also discuss differentials. So starting out, I do have the Gameweek 31 FPL fixture difficulty ranking here. As you can see, top teams here, Leicester, Bournemouth. Burnley is one that's up there too. I'll discuss them a little bit. Liverpool, interesting that Man City is even in here, mainly because their upcoming fixtures are so great, even with the blank this weekend. And Fulham is down here pretty far, even though they do play in both Game Week 31 and 33. Now, the issue with Man City, they would drop more. I didn't take out the Game Week 33 since technically they still don't have a blank there, but it's assumed that they're going to win this weekend, so that they should have a blank there. So something to consider anyway. All right, so I think I discussed before, my plan is still to transfer. I'll have 2 free transfers for this week that I'm going to use. I have some ideas of who I want to bring in, but I'll probably hold off until the end of the week before I do that. So I do have those 2 free transfers that I'm just going to go ahead and ride out this week, set myself up for Game Week 33, and use my free hit chip for Game Week 32 next weekend. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it, and then I will use my wild card in Game Week 34. That's really where I'm heading with it. I have been toying with the idea of triple captaining Salah this weekend. He's the one at least for now, he's going to be my captain pick for this weekend. So that's really what I'm looking at as far as my captain pick. All right, so targeting teams. Leicester City, definitely up here as, one of the top teams here. Now, the difficult thing is Burnley has looked better at home recently, especially defensively. They could make it very difficult for Leicester City to do anything. So I'm still a little bit skeptical with them about whether or not I really want to hold on, really want to play any of them. Not Bournemouth. Who do I want to see? Burnley here. So, and actually, Ashley Barnes is one player that I was thinking about discussing as well. But yeah, as you can see, they're not playing terribly lately. Away, home. I don't know. It's a tough one to call whether or not Leicester's going to be able to break them down. I really wish I had some of the more recent statistics, because it's one thing to look at statistics over the course of the season, but it's another to look at recent form. I really think that that's the better way to look at things. I just haven't really had the time to dig into it that deeply to see what their recent form is. But you could look at, Ashley Barnes is actually one that jumps out as, player in top form here. But moving on. Bournemouth is another team that I would say to definitely look at targeting. Now, Leicester is kind of on the borderline, on the fence for me, at least for this weekend, since they are away to Burnley. But Bournemouth is a team I'm looking to build on. I already have Fraser, I already have Klein in my team, and looking to probably bring in Wilson, maybe King, though I'm leaning more towards Wilson since he is back and did get the goal and assist last weekend. He's looking really good. Burnley is a team that's interesting. They have some good fixtures coming up, and they've looked a lot better in recent weeks. Ashley Barnes is one, again, the one that really jumps out at me, and he's also a great. He's also a decent differential since he's under that 5% pick there, and at 5.7 is a really good value. In recent weeks, he's really climbed the points totals here, 6, 5, 11, 7, 2, 6, and 2, but having some good fixtures coming up here means that he has some great chances to add to his tally. 3 home fixtures in their next 4, and also looking like they will definitely be playing in game week 31 and 33. So Barnes is actually another player that I'm looking at targeting, which would allow me to have a little bit more flexibility as far as money in the bank for game week 33. Liverpool, definitely thinking about triple stack with them. Firmino's a good shout. Mane, of course. Robertson, Van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and always Salah. So Fulham away, they've struggled a little more defensively on the road, so they could give up goals, but it's Fulham. I don't see Fulham scoring a whole lot of goals, certainly not winning this one, and Liverpool should be able to really dominate that match, get a lot of shots, get a lot of goals. Salah has been shooting very well, just not get as far as getting the ball on target, just not being able to score. So I do think he is due, and that is why I'm having him as my captain. Firmino, Mane, also both decent captain's picks there. The Newcastle-Bournemouth game, I'm definitely leaning Bournemouth here. Newcastle could still get some goals, so don't be afraid to go with someone like Rondon or Almiron. Now, just keep in mind that Schär is suspended, so he won't be playing. So that's actually good for Bournemouth and a good reason to stack them since he has been pretty solid at the back there. Chelsea and Everton, I'm definitely leaning towards Chelsea. Definitely leaning towards Chelsea in this one. Looking at, we have Chelsea on here. Hazard is a good one. Azpilicueta has done well recently, despite the -1 here. Fixtures all around that. He has looked good. Higuain is also a decent one to look at. And Hazard is again back in decent form. And looking ahead here, they are set to play in game week 33. So Chelsea and Liverpool are 2 of the top end teams that you could look at stacking moving forward with them. We look here. Higuain is the one that I wanted to see. He has a goal already, and 3 goals total, but he has a goal already in the last 3 matches. And they are going up against Everton. Now, Everton has done a little bit better lately, kind of changed up some of their tactics. So kind of leave it up to you how you feel this match is going to go. The more I think about it, the way that they've changed up some of their tactics could definitely favor them. They are going to be playing at home. It could make it very difficult for Chelsea, even if Chelsea has played much better lately. This Wolverhampton match here, Wolverhampton is a bit of an outlier. They played very well against top 6 teams, so that could be one to basically throw out. But otherwise, they did, since getting absolutely stomped by Man City back here, they haven't done too poorly. Moving on, Huddersfield is probably a team to avoid, but again, that could very easily end up as a 0-0 match. I think I had West Ham here as one to target. Declan Rice is a player that looks good. He's a very good player. Looks good as far as form goes, but that's primarily because he picked up this 15-pointer here. But outside of that, he is mainly, 1 or 2 point player. At 4.6, it's still, it's too much for a defender that's not getting you consistently high points. I think there are better options out there. Honestly, I would avoid. Some of their defense would be good for this fixture here. But I don't know about anything outside of that. Now, Chicharito is a good one. At 1.9% ownership, he has a great differential. And he hasn't been playing great lately, other than this match against Newcastle and the match against Fulham. But the fact that he's done well in those two matches makes it look a little bit better for against Huddersfield. He is the kind of player that should be able to get in behind, and that's the kind of player that you want to have in a team against someone like Huddersfield that's going to sit deep. Now, Arnautovic has been very disappointing since the start of the season. Started out very well, but since then has really dropped off, especially after that injury. Hasn't really done a whole lot, just this one 13-pointer in here, and then otherwise has really dropped off. So both him and Felipe Anderson have been disappointing. You can always take a chance on them, but for me, I'm going to avoid them. I think Chicharito is about the only one that I would think might be able to do something to break through Huddersfield lines, but still, I'm not really trusting any of the West Ham players. So going back here, I would say my top picks are Bournemouth for your more value, Liverpool. If you want to go with Chelsea, if you're betting on them against Everton, you could go with that. But I would say Liverpool is going to be your best high-end choice. Leicester City, you want to pick some of their players in there. Maddison, again, Barnes is a good one. Chilwell, Vardy. Now, Vardy is an interesting one. He has done very well since the new manager came in, has already scored in the last 3 matches, and has already scored 4 goals in that time, plus the assist last weekend. He would be a very interesting differential captain, I would say. So definitely one to look at. Now the issue is he's at 9.0, basically flat 9 million, and that is a bit high as far as forwards go. That really puts him up here with the likes of Firmino, and Liverpool's fixtures do look much better for this weekend. But then again, Leicester's fixtures overall are looking much better going forward, especially playing Bournemouth at home, where Bournemouth has really leaked goals on the road. Vardy might be a good one to look at for long term, for kind of the run-in till the end of the season. So he's another one that I have been considering. Now, my issue is I'm going to have to choose basically one premium, either midfielder or, well, I should say not premium, but mid-grade forward or midfielder for this week. I don't have enough to do, I wouldn't have enough to do Mane and Vardy. But what I'm thinking of doing is bringing in Mane for Son and probably bringing in Callum Wilson for Marcus Rashford. That will set me up for having, I believe, 9 players for Game Week 31, do my free hit for 32, still have enough room that I can make another move for Game Week 33 to get me 10, possibly 11, depending on who is in or out in the FA Cup for that week. I would say that I'm not really banking on anyone right now. Really hoping that Crystal Palace is out, because that would give me more options as far as this Newcastle Crystal Palace match, and I won't have to go quite as drastic in cutting players. So what I did want to talk about is differentials and looking at players that are going to be able to really boost your ranking more than anything. Now, it's easy enough to do the team selected by and go to, page 5 or 6 here. I would say one of the things to try to look at is who do players have in like the top 10,000, and then looking at the team selected by percentages, because a player could have 2.8% ownership, but the majority of that is owned by the top 10K, and I think you'll see more movement in a player that has something like that rather than a player that's 2.8% ownership and the majority of that ownership is with players, in anywhere in the, millions. You also have some teams that will have, maybe there are guys out there that have Ozil in their team because they put him in their team at the beginning of the season thinking that he would be a great fantasy player, and they're no longer playing anymore. But going back here, I usually try to think of a differential as something that's basically under about the 5% ownership range, so somewhere in here around Brooks or so. Now, you do have to think in terms of kind of who is owning someone like a Brooks. So Brooks is going to be highly owned by a lot of the, I think a lot of the top players are going to have Brooks. Lukaku is an interesting differential because I think the other part with the differentials is thinking about, what position is it and who else is playing in that position. So Lukaku is, since he's right at that 5% ownership, but because he's a forward and you have other guys out there like Aubameyang, even Firmino, I think is like 15% owned, Aguero, Kane, you have all these other guys that are highly owned. Having Lukaku in there is much more of a differential because of how many other people own the super high-end picks like the Agueros and the Kanes. And then you come down here like Van Aanholt, who, you kind of also have to think about, who are the other players around them, even as defenders. So Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be highly owned, Azpilicueta, Alonso, Robertson, even Van Dijk, I think, is jumping in ownership. David Silva is a really good differential here at 4.5%. He should be getting more playing time with De Bruyne out. So that's a good one where you're going to get a Man City asset in midfield that's at only 8.5. He has done well whenever he's played, as you can see here. So he's one to really look at down that home stretch where they have a lot of really great fixtures. That's one to definitely keep in mind, one that I'm thinking about looking at maybe even in my free hit as kind of a precursor. I'm seeing my free hit almost as a precursor to my wild card in maybe experimenting a little bit with who I want to have for the end of the season. But so the reason to look at differentials right now is because for teams that are, I would say even like me, where you're really not in the top 10K. And even if you are in the top 10K, you want to find an edge. You want to find a way that you can kind of push everybody else kind of out of their comfort zone, push yourself out of your own comfort zone, and push up the ranks rather than trying to rely on having all of the same players as everyone else. Now, I'm trying to think. I heard somebody talking about kind of swords and shields. So shields being the players that everybody else owns. You have your trusted players that you set up there as kind of, your trusted players. You throw them out there. These are safe picks for you. And then you have your swords, the guys that you want to really push with. You want to really make a big dent in jumping up the ranks. Those are going to be your differentials. Those are going to be the guys out there that people aren't talking about quite as heavily. So Salah, Mane, Kane, Aguero, these are all guys that are like very safe picks. Even if Salah isn't playing well, you know that everybody else is going to be picking Salah just because it's Mo Salah and he has done so well and everybody's expecting him to do well. Whether or not he doesn't really matter because he's at 45% ownership. Yeah, 45% ownership. Same thing with Pogba, 42% ownership. These guys that are way up here, these are safe picks. If you really want to jump up the ranks, you have to take some of these risks. Go with a player, go with someone like Lukaku, where he's only 5.1% ownership in a week where, this game week 32, where Man City is playing Fulham, and United is playing Watford at home. That's actually a really good chance to maybe captain Lukaku instead of Aguero. A lot of people are going to be going in here, captaining Aguero. mainly because Liverpool's playing Tottenham, so not as many people are going to be captaining Salah or Kane. So you're looking at an Aguero captainship here, and maybe instead you go with Lukaku, captain him against Watford, bank on that he's going to continue with his recent form. The other one to think of is your captain differentials. Just think about how many extra points anybody who captained Jimenez in the past 2 weeks has picked up, and how much they've grown in the ranks because they've been able to captain him as a differential that most people aren't going to go with him. For this upcoming week, captaining someone like Jamie Vardy, but even more so, captaining someone like a Callum Wilson, that would be a huge differential where I'm thinking even for myself, if I captain Wilson, he scores 1 or 2 goals. Salah still might score, but I get that extra boost from getting Wilson as my captain differential. Anyway, I think that kind of sums up my thoughts on differentials. They are the players that you want to pick, that you're banking on really giving you extra points when other people are not going to be getting them. That's about the easiest way to kind of sum it up. And that the way to do that is to kind of look at their ownership percentages, and think about who are the other players around them, and who are the other players around them that are being picked more frequently than them. Even Ashley Barnes is a bit of a differential, just because I think he would be an interesting differential captain, to be honest. But 3.5% ownership is usually your differential range. Now, the issue is I think he's one that a lot of managers are jumping on lately, so he's going to lose some of that differential pick. Thinking about teams in your leagues, teams around you, and what they're going to be doing. Okay, I think that about covers everything for this game week. Just remember that it is, like you can see here, this is the blank game week. I hope that you have everything set up and ready to go for this game week and looking ahead for the next 2 game weeks after that. This game week 31 through 33 is going to be I think this is going to be a pretty huge week. I think some of the teams that are down in the lower tiers that aren't paying attention to this are going to really drop. And if you're around anybody like that, this is a good chance for you to really pick up some extra points and rise up the ranks. I, for one, am really hoping to get a green arrow. It has been several weeks since I've seen any green arrows. It's getting very frustrating. And like I said last week, my biggest issue has been the captaincy. If I could just get my captain pick right, that would be great. And I think I could see some green arrows once I start to get my captain's picks right. So far, it has not worked out. So anyway, let me know, what is your favorite differential going into game week 31, and who are you planning to captain for this game week? So yeah, that should wrap it up. As always, wish you good luck and have fun.